Welcome back. I am Molly Smith, your host. I want to remind you all that our program is available for download. You can do so by going to our website, fromthemedian.org. Listeners, thank you so much for joining us. We have got a returning guest to the program, somebody who I know is very well appreciated by all of us because of the incredible work that he and his organization does. Tom Olp is going to be joining us shortly, and he is here to talk about something that's a very interesting thing that's happening in Illinois. A win and a lose, sort of all in the same case. So let me introduce Tom Olp. Tom is the Executive Vice President of Thomas More Society, and you are all very familiar with Thomas More Society. We have been very involved with them. They've been very kind and helped us in several different ways. It's just an amazing organization. So those of you that are out there, I want to say this before I go any further, that have got like $7 million sitting in a bank somewhere. You need to give $1 million of those to Thomas More Society because they are such an incredible organization and they do such good work for all of us, Christian folks that are fighting the laws and fighting the good fight. Thomas More Society is just an amazing organization. So Tom Olp serves as the Executive Vice President at the Thomas More Society. He is magna cum laude graduate of Georgetown University, earned his JD from the Catholic University of America, Columbus School of Law, and an LLM from Georgetown University Law Center. Tom began his legal career with the National Labor Relations Board and later honed his experience as labor and employment lawyer with Montgomery Ward. From 1985 to 1994, he practiced in Washington, D.C. as a partner at a high-profile law firm, and then he joined Thomas More Society in 2007, initially providing pro bono legal service before becoming a board member in 2014. And since 2015, he has worked as a full-time attorney, managing cases across Illinois and beyond, with a focus on pro-life advocacy and religious freedom. And that is why we have him on today, because there's something very interesting happening in Illinois. Tom, welcome to the program. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you very much, Molly, for having us. And you're very kind to speak about the Thomas More Society. Our mission is life, family, and freedom. So we watch the backs of pro-life people throughout the country, and we're interested in protecting religious freedom for all of our citizens here in this country. And the case that I'm going to talk to you about involves religious freedom here in Illinois.
Yeah.
As you know, Illinois, since the Dobbs decision and even before, it wants to be the Midwestern capital of the go-to place for abortion in the Midwest. And so what they try to do is protect abortion and essentially make abortion easier and easier to get in Illinois. And back in 2016, under Governor Rauner, he signed a bill that tried to do just that. It requires pregnancy centers to talk about the, quote, risks and benefits, the benefits especially of all, quote, all legal treatment options, unquote, which essentially is a euphemism for abortion. So here we're faced with a law back in 2016 where our pregnancy centers here in Illinois have to talk about the benefits of abortion. And needless to say, they were not interested in doing that. The other thing the law did was it required, upon request, for pregnancy centers to refer or give information about the providers that they had an objection to, i.e., abortion clinics and abortion providers. And the PRCs here in Illinois did not want to do that either. So they contacted the Thomas More Society, and we filed a lawsuit, which has been going on since 2017. And just this year, we finally got a decision from the Northern District of Illinois in Rockford, Judge Ian Johnston, who gave us a split decision. He struck down on First Amendment grounds the requirement to talk about the risks and benefits of all legal treatment options, but he upheld the referral requirements.
Oh my!
So we're now appealing that and hope to get all of what we want and have to have, because our pregnancy centers, needless to say, can't give a referral to a service that they are set up to that they have a total conscientious objection to.
Absolutely, absolutely. So Tom, just walk me through this. So since 2000, nearly 10 years ago, this law was passed, but hopefully it has not been in effect because it's been challenged. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
A federal injunction was entered in 2017 to prevent the law from coming into effect. So, but pending litigation of it, the injunction was a preliminary injunction covering all of Illinois, and it still continues to be. The law is still enjoined pending appeal.
Okay.
The state has agreed not to enforce the law pending an appeal now in the Seventh Circuit here in Chicago.
So who actually brings the lawsuit again? Who are the defendants? I mean the people.
Well, there's a number. We have 3 pregnancy centers.
Okay.
As plaintiffs. We have another lawsuit in Springfield, which is stayed at this time. That's 18 additional pregnancy centers, and we're working with the Alliance Defending Freedom, who has 1 or 2 other plaintiffs as well. So there's a number of pregnancy centers. We also have a physician as a plaintiff, Ron Schroeder, from down in Illinois near St. Louis.
Wow. So tell me, where do we go now? I mean, this is incredible. What happens if? How long do? Let me first go there. You've appealed. This walk us all through. How does this happen now? What happens next?
So now we've gotten a briefing schedule, and that takes us. We file an opening brief. The other side, the state files a response, and we file a reply. And that's going to take us into August of this year. And then an oral argument is scheduled, which will be several months later. And then we wait for a decision, which typically takes a year. So we're talking about at least a year from now before we hear an answer to the question. And of course, if we lose again, we'll no doubt appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court. In the meantime, the law is not being enforced. What happens if we lose? Well, I don't know. I do believe our clients will not comply with the law.
You almost say, how can they? They can't.
How can they? Right? How can they?
Yeah.
And it raises the question, Molly, of what conscience rights do we have here in this country?
Mm-hmm.
As this country becomes more secular, the powers that be are less likely or less willing to accommodate people's consciences.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so that's a real danger in this country for religious freedom. So we're very much interested in making sure that that pregnancy centers can exercise their conscience rights. You probably heard about the U.S. Supreme Court oral argument yesterday involving mothers and parents in Maryland wanting an opt-out from kind of disgusting sexual content for grade school children. And Maryland, basically, it's an example of them saying, well, we really don't care if you have some conscience objection to what we're doing, how we've decided to educate your kids. We're not going to allow you to opt your children out. We're going to, indoctrinate them whether you like it or not. Yeah. Well, that's hopefully the U.S. Supreme Court is going to say, no, that's not acceptable. But in Illinois, what this law does is it conditions your right to have a conscience objection to being involved in abortion on your complying with what they say. That is to essentially treat abortion as if it's a completely legitimate medical treatment like any other.
Okay.
And essentially the law says we're not going to allow you to not participate in the abortion services unless you talk about abortion in a neutral fashion. Whereas,
Wow.
medical people involved in pregnancy centers they cannot do that and will not do that.
No.
And it's in our law. The law in the United States needs to respect that kind of a position, because we know that law basically is moral,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's a moral basis for it.
Yeah.
It's not whatever people just vote for or decide. Some laws are immoral.
Yep. Exactly. And it almost the whole court system, and you are part of it, so I'm sure you're seeing it up close and personal, Tom. But the whole legal system seems to have has been totally hijacked by the political realm.
We live in a very ideological time.
Yeah.
And people, the more ideological you are, the less in reality you live.
Yeah.
Right. You propound certain positions, and you don't even care if doesn't comport with reality. And we have to move away from that. We have to have people, living with common sense. And look at reality as it really is. How do you do that? Well, people of faith do it by saying, there's a God, there's a divine authority to whom everyone must accede. And we can't just make it up as we go along.
Absolutely. And I think it's interesting that you would bring that up, because I think what's happened is the further away we've gone from, as you say, reality, even from a scientific perspective. I mean, now we've got how many different sexes, 100 or something, totally ridiculous. The more this has almost warped our understanding or even interpretation of our Constitution, which it is a very moral document.
Absolutely, yeah. Our founding fathers appreciated that you really can't have a self-governing people without people who have virtue and have values that are conducive to living together peacefully.
Yeah.
And the more you move away from that, the more anarchy, conflict, violence you have. And we're seeing that in this country, all right.
Yeah, we sure are. And it's going to be, I'm hoping we've already seen the worst, and it's going to get better, because oftentimes, it gets worse before it gets better.
It's back and forth.
Yeah.
I think you're right about ebb and flow.
Yeah.
I hopefully you're right about that. Just before you called, I was talking to a high school teacher who is now suspended because in high school biology class, he talked about embryos and when human life begins. And he basically said, the human being as an organism starts from fertilization. And now his public school administration has suspended him for saying that.
Oh my goodness. But that's scientific. I'm blown away. I remember many years back, Tom, my little girl, who's now a mom with five boys herself, but I remember her on the playground, and I was filling in for somebody, and I was doing a bit of playground duty at her school, and it was a private school. But I remember all these little kids, because she was sort of gravitating around me, and these kids were all talking. They knew I was involved in the pro-life movement, and there was this amazing, beautiful discussion about the baby in the womb. I mean, it was just beautiful. These little girls and I think she must have been first grade or something, but they totally got it. And I thought, if only I had a tape recorder and I could have taped this amazing discussion that they had. Children get it. And yet, the older we get, the more stupid we get. I hate to use that word, but that is so true. It's like,
well,
yeah,
it's the ideology of
yeah,
the educational system, and people need to wake up though, because and you have to have enough courage
yeah,
to speak up. People more, nobody wants trouble, right? But you have in a nice way to speak the truth about things,
absolutely.
and you have to fight. So that's what the Thomas More Society does. It says, hey, we have your back when you're facing the crosswinds of culture in these areas.
Yeah,
And so somebody's got to fight this stuff.
absolutely. Absolutely. And Thomas More Society does it amazingly well. Amazingly. You were one of the original legal firms that helped David DeLayden, not so?
We represented David DeLayden for many years,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
before that, Joe Scheidler.
Joe Scheidler, yes, exactly. I forgot about
Our
that.
boss,
Gosh,
my boss, Tom Brecka, who's just a wonderful guy.
yeah, he
He
is.
started back in the 80s and early 90s representing Joe Scheidler from the Pro-Life Action League, who was out there on the sidewalks, trying to communicate a message of life.
Mm-hmm.
And that's our primary scope of activity, is representing people on the sidewalk, so that they can give a message of hope and life to women.
Yeah.
It's so important because our culture is so dead that women hear, oh, just have an abortion, you'll be better off.
Yeah.
And it's just totally not true.
Yeah. Exactly.
People do have consciences.
Yeah.
And as you know, Molly, you would suffer your whole life from choosing abortion, because you know in your heart that's, well, not only is it your own flesh and blood, but it's a human being.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, and there's no getting away from it. And I think no matter when, it's funny, we have a wonderful post-abortion ministry here in Cleveland, and the president, the founder and president of the organization she herself had 2 or 3 abortions herself, and then she saw the light, and she started this ministry. But what I'll never forget her. She said one of the things she said was, if I can just let everybody know and give them the information about how painful it is, it will stop it. There will be no more. Unfortunately, what happens is that in the moment, people go through this thing. Okay, this is the easy way out. This is the quick way out. But she said this is like 20 years ago or 25 years ago, and it hasn't really changed. What we have to do is change the way we think about this. And the more often we have somebody who's teaching, to your point about the teacher, Tom, who says, this is a scientific fact. Human life begins at fertilization. If we can stop people talking about that, what they are hoping is, the opposition's hoping, is that we can just make it, everybody's going to have an abortion. There's going to be nothing wrong with it. And the actual law that you're fighting right now with taking away people's freedom to speak the truth is going to prevail. So that's why I think it's so important to get your message out there. So important.
Back in 2018, when this dispute was going on, we filed a complaint with the Office of Civil Rights in the Health and Human Services Department. And that was, of course, in the first Trump administration. And then, of course, Trump lost the 2020 election. And we never heard anything about that complaint we filed. And the complaint was essentially similar to the lawsuit we filed, but it also called to task ACOG, the American Congress of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, because they're doing the same thing, trying to mainstream abortion, trying to force physicians, about 90% of physicians want nothing to do with abortion.
Yeah.
And in any event, I got a phone call recently from the Office of Civil Rights saying, "Oh, remember that complaint you filed? Let's get back to work on it."
Oh,
So
wow.
I'm happy that there are people in Washington now who are actually, interested in these issues, and
Absolutely.
they want to preserve. I know
Absolutely.
President Trump has issued an executive order to protect religious freedom rights here in this country, and we really need to do that. And it should be done in all administrations. Luckily, the Trump administration uh, seems to be serious about that, which is very important, I think.
Absolutely. Tom, what's next for, I mean, I know it's ongoing. You have things going on all the time. So, but right now you've had, as I said right at the beginning of the program, we're about to wrap up now, but you had part win and a part lose sort of thing. So you will just keep on fighting this until you get the full win, correct?
We will, right. And the part we lost was about referral. And the judge said, well, I don't think referral is really about free speech. It's like writing a prescription. And so I think the state can force you to give a referral. And, so that's going to be an interesting issue on
That'd be
appeal.
very interesting, yep.
We think when you're required to write or give information, write down on a piece of paper the name of somebody you're totally against.
Yeah, exactly right.
How could it be anything other than expression?
Exactly right. Exactly
So we're hopeful that we can win on appeal, and that'll be the end of this law.
Mm-hmm.
As you know, Molly, what happens is if laws like this get passed and get upheld, then pretty soon throughout the country, the progressives are going to push those laws.
Absolutely.
And the same thing has happened with, bubble zones and other laws that essentially make life more difficult for the pro-life message.
Exactly right.
Well, our job is to fight those laws, and we'll continue to do that. And we represent people pro bono, so we do completely rely on the support of the public.
Yes, that's exactly right. That's why that millionaire out there, make sure you send your money to Thomas More. Because
yes, thank you. It really is important because it's only people out there who have some consciousness of these issues that they say, "Oh, geez, I better do something."
Yeah, exactly
about
right.
it.
Exactly. And honestly, Tom, I know for our organization, you don't have to be a millionaire. I'm being a bit facetious here, but you do need to understand, though, that even if it's, I don't know, maybe $10 a month, it makes a huge difference to an organization that relies on our funding. So whatever you can give, please do give it. I will put up all the information on our website, fromthemedian.org. And just in case you're somewhere you can write this down, it is thomasmoresociety.org. thomasmoresociety.org. So please do that. Tom Olp, thank you so much for all you do. God bless you lots and lots for the work that you do. We could not be where we are right now without organizations like yours. So thank you.
Well, Molly, thank you very much. And I want to thank you. Hey, you're out there publicizing, helping spread the message of life. And I thank you for that.
You're quite welcome. Okay. Take care and God bless you lots. Bye-bye.